Welcome back to Maldo's Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Maldonado. And today on Maldo's Magic, we are honored to welcome a truly remarkable scholar whose work stands at the crossroads of academia and living magical traditions. Dr. Angela Puca is a university lecturer at Leeds Trinity University and holds both a bachelor's and master's degree in philosophy. In 2021, she was awarded a PhD in religious studies by the University of Leeds with her doctoral research published by Brill under the title Italian Witchcraft and Shamanism. Her research focuses on magic, witchcraft, paganism, esotericism, shamanism, and related currents. Fields often misunderstood, yet deeply rooted in history, culture, and lived experience. She's an author of multiple peer-reviewed publications and the co-editor of Pagan Religions in 5 Minutes for Equinox. Beyond academia, Dr. Puca is dedicated to bridging the gap between scholarly research and practitioner communities. Through her YouTube channel and social media platform, Angela's Symposium, she makes rigorous academic insight accessible to those actively engaged in magical and spiritual traditions. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome Dr. Angela Puca to Maldo's Magic, and the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. Yes, if you want to tell us basically how what sparked your interest to go down this path and with the research that you do, and now, the floor is yours.
Sorry if I hope I'm not gonna cough throughout
Hey,
this.
listen, it happens. Sometimes I cough too, but I got my water on standby.
Yes. So I've always been interested in magic. I think that it's always been something that has fascinated me ever since I was a child, both because of exposure and because of I've always thought that magic is something that really challenges the our understanding of ourselves and our role in the world and the extent of our agency and also pretty much the nature of a human being. Because if you're able to do magic, if you're able to alter reality in unseen ways, then it means a lot in terms of us as human beings, us in the world, the cosmology. So I've always felt like magic was really a core interest of mine, something that was fascinating from many different angles, philosophical, the practice, how it would work, why people believe in magic, even if it is something that is obviously not particularly accepted in our society, probably never was to a degree. It's complicated, but very often magic has been used as a term of othering. So if you do magic, if you do witchcraft, you're doing the practice of the other, something that is unacceptable. I've always been fascinated in magic. Then during my university degrees, I focused on philosophy because we don't, at least at the time, there wasn't really any religious studies program in Italy. Usually people that would do religion were priests, going to theology to become priests. So nowadays there are some religious studies departments in Italy. It is still not the norm as you would find in other countries. But yeah, pretty much the closest thing was philosophy. And I love philosophy. I still teach philosophy at the university. I love it. I love both philosophy and religious studies. To me, they are completely interconnected. No surprise that in the UK, at least, they are in conjunction in the same department, whereas in Italy, they are separate. But so I started studying that at the university, and then I found out, which I was not aware of, because it's not something that it really happens in Italy, that it was possible to study contemporary magic practices from an academic point of view. And that was a bit of an epiphany for me. And I thought, if that is something that is possible, I definitely want to pursue it. Obviously I had to move to another country to do that because I couldn't have done that in Italy. But yeah, then I moved to the UK to do my PhD, and I studied Italian witchcraft and Italian shamanism. So my fieldwork was still in Italy, but my research was with the UK university and published in English. So, but
Wow.
yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell what's been going on. And then in the meantime, I started my YouTube channel, Angela Symposium. I'm
Mhm.
present on all social media platforms as either Dr. Angela Puca or Angela Symposium, because I wanted to bridge the gap between academia and the community of practitioners so that practitioners would have an easier access to academic scholarship. That's why I always put my references there and my sources. I mean, I don't criticize channels and podcasts that are based on people's opinions. I think that's totally fine and they definitely have a place. But I thought that there was a lack of actually sourced reference and academic content on YouTube. Now there's a handful of us doing this kind of work, but yeah, I just thought that was missing. So my whole project is about delivering academic scholarship on magic and esotericism, and that goes alongside my academic job because I'm still an academic. I still work at university.
That's great. Excellent. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of stuff online, right? And a lot of it just really opinions, and a lot of it's not peer reviewed, right? It's just some stuff that people made up, or there are a lot of conspiracies out there and stuff. So I try to stay away from that, especially with like Masonic scholarship. We try to really use our extensive library to do the research, and depending on the topic, especially when we're giving lectures and stuff.
Well, with Freemasonry, you have like endless conspiracy theories. So
It's ridiculous the amount of stuff I get. We're just having my ring on in different places, and I'm like, well, you could think that, but this is it. And a lot of the people will say, well, you're not at the top yet. So I'm like, okay, all right, but you're not even in it. So how would you know? So yeah, it's very interesting, but it's fun. There's a lot of my whole thing is knowledge over ignorance. There's a lot of ignorance out there, really, and I just love to educate people on different items with symbolism and how they can understand the world better and where we've come from, really, based on knowing the stuff in the past. All right, so let me go right into the questions. So when people hear the phrase Italian witchcraft, they often imagine a single tradition. From an academic standpoint, how would you define Italian witchcraft, and why is it more accurate to speak of multiple regional traditions rather than one unified system?
that sounds like a statement more than a question. Like
Okay.
or it's a leading question saying that regional variations override the unified version. I have an answer for that, and in fact, that is the reason why I always say that I'm the first Italian and academic that has systematized Italian witchcraft as a whole. And it is true. I mean, you find Stregheria and all that kind of stuff, but that's American inventions, is not Italian witchcraft. But yeah, when we talk about actual scholarship, what is really going on in Italy, not made
Mhm.
up, you really don't have a systematic study of Italian witchcraft as a whole before me. And I always say it's not because I'm a genius that I just appeared and it's like, oh, let's do this thing that nobody has done because I'm just better than everybody else. No, it is because in reality, a unified tradition has just been emerging in recent years. And in the past, there were only regional variations and they were quite siloed. They weren't in conversation. I also have an academic paper on how social media has affected Italian witchcraft, and I also talk about that, how it has affected also the nomenclature. So, for instance, I have systematized Italian witchcraft under the label the tradition of segnature. You will find academic papers on that as well that are freely accessible on my academia.edu page and on the internet. But yeah, I systematize it under this label because in recent years, the term segnature, which originally comes from the region Emilia-Romagna, has been used and applied to describe practices in other regions as well. And that is because there was a lack of a term that was descriptive in a way that would make sense to describe practices across different regions. Also, as time has gone by, people have traveled more and more in between different regions. So both the access to information via the internet and the fact that people have traveled more have allowed for different practices that were originally siloed in different regions to sort of spread throughout the country and become something that is, in effect, to all intent and purposes, Italian, so that it is Italian, an Italian practice. So Italian witchcraft is a set of different practices. I have systematized the vernacular healing tradition in Italy as the tradition of Segnature, but I'm now working on a book on Italian witchcraft, a new book on Italian witchcraft and shamanism that is more practice oriented. And I found a way to use a Venn diagram to describe the whole of Italian folk witchcraft and shamanism, because there are some practices that qualify as witchcraft and shamanism and other practices that would only really qualify as witchcraft. For instance, there are a lot of little folk spells and folk practices that I don't think really classify as forms of shamanism. But then you have other forms like dream work and taranta and other type of ecstatic practices that qualify as forms of shamanism, and the healing in the Segnature as well. So Italian witchcraft and shamanism are quite varied. So they have different things. You also have the work with the dead, with the famous example is the Capuzzelle souls, but that's a whole different topic. So Italian witchcraft and shamanism is really an umbrella term to describe a set of different practices, some of which are both witchcraft and shamanism, and others could be more accurately defined as witchcraft and not shamanism. So this is Italian witchcraft, but you have I'd say that the tradition of Segnature is probably the bulk of it, even though there are other elements in Italian witchcraft. The tradition of Segnature, I think, represents the biggest and the bulk of it, really. And the Segnature are it is called the tradition of Segnature because the Segnature are the core practice that are found across regional variations and across different places and different families. And the Segnature are gestures accompanied by words that are passed down through initiation, usually at Christmas Eve, but it depends because there are also Segnature linked to the saints that are passed down during the Day of the Saint, for instance. These would be the core practice, and they are used for healing, for malocchio, the evil eye, casting and removing the evil eye. They are used for divination. They are used for even psychological help. So there's something to remove the fright, which is trauma and the effects that it has on the body. You really have quite a variety.
Well, excellent. Question I had I was thinking of is there more like Greco influence, or is the witchcraft, is it more Roman Empire influence, or does it like predate the Roman Empire and the Greco Empire, or is it like amalgamation of the two?
Neither.
Okay.
So obviously I'm talking about a contemporary tradition.
Okay.
For my PhD, I didn't look at the history because my PhD is in anthropology of religion. And if people are familiar with how academia works, you have to stay in your field lane.
Okay.
But given that the book that I'm working on now is a book for the general public, I decided to also do some historical research with the help of some historian colleagues as well. And because I thought I want to find out how old the Segnature are. And I came into it pretty much thinking, it's going to be because practitioners are obsessed with having their practice being the most ancient of the ancient. And then you try and find the evidence for that, and there's none. So I was really expecting to just find that it would be like 200 years old or something like that. But actually I found out that it is really old, which surprised me. Because I found the first occurrence of the term used in conjunction with a practice that is still present today. Because when we talk about historical continuity, we have to be clear. It's not sufficient to find some vague connection or some vague resemblance. If you want to approach it academically, you have to find continuity, which means you have to find the same practice and not just
Okay.
some vague resemblance, which is something that I hear from practitioners a lot. Like, oh, there's a triangle here, and there was a triangle in ancient Rome, so clearly it comes from ancient Rome. This kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I've literally heard, that kind of logic a
Wow.
few times. So in this case, I needed to find term in relation to a practice that still at least resembles like very, very clearly what is being done now. And I actually found an instance of the use of the term signature in conjunction with something that exactly happens in that exact way now from the 1500s in court case records, of which they was accused of signing bodies. That was the first occurrence of the term in relation with the practice, but I also found earlier occurrences of the practice without the use of the label. So I could go back at least 900 years. Now, some of my informants claim, and as I said, practitioners do have a certain attitude towards these things. Some of my informants claim that some of the signature come from, there are some Coptic elements in some signature that are the same as in the Greek magical papyri. Some also have told me that that some signature drove back to the Phoenicians. So I have had those from informants. I haven't found any evidence yet, but I cannot exclude it because I couldn't really do proper research into the historical records of those specific times. So if anybody wants to take that up for a PhD, I'd be happy to help. But based on the evidence that I was able to find, they go back at least 900 years. And yes, it is true that there are some signature that have Coptic elements that are present in the Greek magical papyri, but that is not evidence of continuity because somebody could have picked up the Greek magical papyri, I don't know, 50 years ago and and included that in a practice. So how can you know? You need a bit more than that. That's why claiming historical continuity is actually quite tricky. And that I was actually surprised that I could find those evidence. And then I liaised with some historians and showed them, because I'm working for, I'm working on these things for a book. And I said, I don't want to write things that are not correct. And I am aware that I'm an anthropologist of religion and not a historian of religion. So I wanted to also consult with historians of religion and said, I found this, and that. Do you think that this is enough evidence to claim continuity? And they all said yes, including some that have worked on Italian witchcraft specifically. So I'm confident now in saying that without worrying that I might be, doing something wrong methodologically.
Okay, wow. So now, next question. How does Italian folk Catholicism, as far as saints, feast days, blessings, and charms, intersect with what we might call witchcraft or magical practice? And where do those lines blur historically and culturally?
Well, Italian witchcraft is completely imbued in Catholicism, especially for the old generation of segnatori and segnatrici. That's the Italian for the practitioners of segnature. Segnatrici is female plural, segnatori is male plural. So I have created a typology distinction between the old generation of segnatori and the new generation of segnatori, which is not strictly based on age, but more based on, well, partly on age, because generally speaking, people that are over the age of 60 and tend to live in more secluded areas, they don't use the internet very much, they are a bit more reserved and don't want to share their practice. Those would be the ones of the old generation of segnatori, whereas the new generation of segnatori, more than the age in and of itself, they are distinguished by the fact that they live in more connected areas, that they are willing to share their practices, they are connected on the internet, and the new generation of segnatori tends to syncretize a bit more with paganism, for instance, and other new age practices, whereas the old generation of segnatori, they don't really share their practices at all. So for them, they are just devout Catholics that are doing Catholicism. So the new generation of segnatori tend to be a bit more, to ask themselves more questions and wonder a bit more what kind of syncretism they can apply with these segnature, and how they can use them in different magical ways. But the old generation definitely was, it was just devout Catholics that were given these segnature by their grandmothers, and they were helping the village, the town, to heal whatever it is that they were given as a gift. So the relationship with the Catholic Church is that for the old generation of practitioners, and generally speaking, the segnature are imbued with Catholicism and work with the saints. The Catholic Church officially doesn't agree with these practices and doesn't accept these practices, but in reality it's a different matter, because lived religions are always different from institutionalized religions and what you find in the book. So in reality you find that there are a lot of priests that work in conjunction with segnatori. You also find doctors that work with segnatori, and there are some illnesses that that the doctors would just say go to the local healer to have that, because they cannot cure it, especially when it is viral things. Like there's one that's called Sant'Antoni's fire in Italian, il fuoco di Sant'Antonio, and it would be the shingles pretty much, and it's not something that there's a specific cure for. At least Italian medicine, that's what they say, because it is a virus. I know that different places also have different views on these things. But yeah, in Italy, they would say, we don't really have a cure for that, to go to the local healer to get that fixed. And, it's not something that I've only experienced in my fieldwork. I recently, when was it, a month ago? I did a lecture at the University of Rome, and there were a lot of colleagues also from other universities, and I was talking about this topic. And there were other colleagues that also said, yeah, I also had the experience that, this person in my family went to the hospital and they said, go to the old woman in the town. She's going to help you. So yeah, you do have those things happening. I haven't just heard it from my direct informants during fieldwork, but also as I've been presenting my research to conferences, at lectures, I get more and more confirmations that this is the case.
It's so interesting, the difference between like Europe and the United States. For us, they would never do that. It's such a big business out here. They would just send you to like a special clinic or a hospital. It's so like, I guess, science related and so materialistic, where it's...
Well, you can get that gets me started on why I am very much opposed to private healthcare, because I really don't think that when healthcare is private, it's going to necessarily serve people's health and much more people's pockets. I feel very strongly against both education and healthcare being private. I think that they should be publicly funded, that is.
Yeah, it's a whole big thing, the healthcare system out here. That's why for me and my community, we're more about like helping people holistically. I manage flotation therapy places. So doing like sensory deprivation, removing yourself from reality, sun gazing, like holistic stuff, taking natural stuff. So a lot of the spiritual community out here is just big on just more organic, healthy ways to stay healthy rather than rely on medication stuff. So we're all like kind of anti that stuff and more like, nope, let's do spiritual stuff. Let's do, intelligent stuff that we know that could help your body by taking like supplements and herbs and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's good to combine that with medicine. I think medicine also has a place, obviously. There are many things that we can only really cure with medicine, but it's good to have multiple ways to tackle a problem.
Yeah, there's been some people that they didn't want to go through the medical ways for cancer, and they would have us set up like pyramids and do like Reiki on them because they just were so anti that. So it's another issue where some people, they get spiritual, but they're not really aware that you have to have a balance, really, because some stuff, you can't really heal with just Reiki. So let me go to the next question. The term streheria, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Stregheria.
Is widely used today, especially in modern pagan spaces.
American, yes.
Yes. How does it relate to historical Italian folk practices, and where do misunderstandings or romanticizations tend to arise?
Well, they arise from the fact that Stregheria is an American invention. So
American
it
invention.
was made
Okay.
up by an American
Okay.
who
Write that one down. Yep.
couldn't speak Italian and had
Okay.
Italian heritage. And there is this tendency in America that people say they are from different places that they are born. Sorry about that, but I am from
That's fine.
Europe, and I know from Irish people and Scottish people and German people that it is something that I think that it is very well accepted when Americans say I have this kind of heritage, and it is frowned upon when people say I am Italian, German, whatever, but you're born and raised in the U.S. It's not.
It's a big problem here. Like for me, I had a big identity problem for years because I was just so American, but like I really kind of shunned my Hispanic and like Spaniard heritage because I wanted to be so American here. And it's a big identity crisis right now where people are, I'm Italian or I'm this, and some people actually I know just actually got citizenship because they rather have that than the American identity. It's identity is a huge issue right now out here.
Yeah, I can empathize with that. I can understand how that could be difficult. I think just being respectful of people that actually come from that place. So I think when people have that kind of respect, it's not really a problem. But there are cases of Americans that are not very respectful of other cultures and quite appropriate them. Like in the case of Stregheria, where this guy Raven Grimassi invented a tradition that's pretty much Wiccan based with Italian sauce sprinkled on it, and based on Leland work, which is not historical at all, and the Gospel of the Witches and Aradia. I have dedicated videos on this on my YouTube channel for people that want to go more in depth, because I go through the whole argument and I explain all the evidence, which obviously I can't do in a brief way here. But pretty much that Stregheria is not Italian. The word Stregheria doesn't even exist in Italian. It's a Wiccan-based tradition created in America clearly for the Italian diaspora. And if that helped people with Italian heritage to reconnect with their heritage, I mean, I'm happy for them. I'm not here to judge people's practices. As an anthropologist, I'm very respectful of what is meaningful to people and what has importance to people. So even if they use something that is not authentic to reconnect with their heritage, I'd say that's great. I'm happy for you. But it is important to know that because Stregheria did claim to be authentic Italian witchcraft, that is false. It's just completely false.
Wow.
And there are books in English on Italian witchcraft, none of which I would recommend. Because I think they fall in either of two camps. One would be the Stregheria one, which is just completely fabricated, and I don't want to sound too harsh, but let's just say completely fabricated. And I also witnessed myself Grimassi interacting with actual Italians who could actually speak Italian, that were actually born and raised in Italy.
Yeah.
And they were telling him, this is not what is happening here. And he was saying, you're wrong, in English, obviously, because he couldn't speak Italian at all. So I think that, there is a case of people that are just, making things up. And there is another camp of people that you can tell that they actually made an effort, that they traveled through Italy, they tried to understand what's going on. So I've seen books like that in English as well. And I respect those more. And it brings to my attention how important it is to be part of a culture to really understand the nuance. Because in that other camp, what I see is that they were really respectful and tried really hard to understand it, but because you are not from a culture, especially with folk magic, there's a lot of nuance that you wouldn't understand. So for instance, in one of these books they use the word for witch, which actually means something different, and as somebody coming from the place, I understand why they made that mistake, because it is a term that is used for a woman that's close to you, and that you have a specific type of relationship with, but that's not witch. So that woman was not using the term witch, she was using another term. So there are types of nuances that if you're not from the place, you just won't understand, because I think you can understand other type of practices. I think you could understand Italian Catholicism as a non-Italian, but folk magic is completely entrenched in the culture. So if you're not a native speaker or
Yeah.
somebody who's born in that environment, there are lots of nuances that just even with your best effort, you couldn't understand. I know that it may sound frustrating, but I have this grandiose project that maybe will never happen because it's difficult to find funding in academia. But I'd like to do a study on European folk magic practices, and I could go and do folk magic field work in Poland or in Eastern Europe myself, but I know that I wouldn't understand it, because I know that folk magic is so imbued and entrenched in the culture that I would need a native to properly understand all the nuance. And I'm a researcher, so I know how to do field work, I know how to do the data collection and all of that, and I still think that I wouldn't be able to do it. So it is because folk magic, differently from other type of religious traditions, it is so incredibly entrenched in the culture that you need to be from there. Otherwise, I don't think you can fully grasp what's going on, if that makes sense.
No, it does, because even in Spanish, like the Spanish we speak in Puerto Rico or in even New York compared to Spain, there's different words that we're like, wait, what does that mean? But then like going there, I understand it based on talking to people, but it's hard. You wouldn't really understand it unless you were born there, right? So the nuances, I get that now. It's really hard to just go to another place, a country, a region, and study it. How are you going to know? Because you don't even speak the language, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting. In Masonry, we do have degrees in Italian, the Garibaldi degree it's called. I don't know how authentic it is. I haven't studied that much Italian yet. And then we do have some Spanish lodges that do degrees in Galician Spanish as well. So I don't know if that could be an American invention as well, but it's very interesting that some organizations try to keep the culture, I guess, in the United States.
I think that that's different, though. It's different. Yeah, I think that's. I find that that's much more acceptable, because I think in a ceremonial tradition or in any tradition, you can, if you want to incorporate elements from other cultures, that's different from saying, oh, this is Italian, the authentic Italian witchcraft, and completely making it up, But because if you have some Italian elements in that specific degree, it's not claiming that that's an Italian tradition. That's my understanding. So maybe there is something from specific Italian cases like Giuseppe Garibaldi that maybe inspired that specific degree, but it's not, I don't know. I'm assuming it's not claiming to be an Italian tradition.
It's, believe it or not, it's actually all in Italian. I've witnessed it before. It's a whole big event. It's all in Italian, and within Masonry, there's degrees that are stem from I guess a French line or Scottish Rite line, and then there's degrees that stem from the York Rite line. And the degrees that are more from like the French line or Latin origin languages tend to be more esoteric versus the York Rite ones. But so it's all in Italian. And it's a different ritual that we don't actually perform in New York. So they have like permission to do it, and the same thing with the one in Galician Spanish as well. So they try to keep it to authentic language. I don't know how, if they all were born in Italy, but the whole degree was in Italian.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. I know it's not witchcraft, but just to kind of for me to understand, the development and how people there are in Masonry at least trying to keep a hold of the culture. They don't want to lose it, and they want to incorporate it within Masonry in the States.
Mm-hmm. That's understandable.
Yes. So, all right. So, next question. Italian magical traditions often work with local spirits, saints, and land-based powers. Can you share examples of how regional identity, north, south, rural, urban, shapes magical worldviews and practices, if there is separate identities?
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, no problem. Italian magical traditions often work with local spirits, saints, and land-based powers. Can you share examples of how regional identity, whether it's north, south, rural, urban, shapes magical worldviews and practices?
Um, I'm not sure how regional variations shape practices, you said. Um,
Meaning, is there a different? Like I think you said it's more unified. Are there different regional identities, or is it based off like northern or southern,
I
Italy?
think so, especially in the past, as I said, now it's becoming a bit more,
Okay.
everything is a bit more widespread in the peninsula. But especially in the past, you would have the south is was more focused on evil eye removal and casting the evil eye.
Okay.
You find that in the north there was a bit more of certain type of rituals like fixing bones, the ritual for the fright, very big in Tuscany, um, and also there were more male practitioners in the north than in the south. You'd have sometimes the initiation was passed down cross gender, whereas in the south it was more same gender. So you have these type of things, but I'm not sure if there are specific regional things that affect rituals because I think it's just more generally Italian.
Okay.
Maybe the thing is that the regional thing that might affect it is maybe the use of the things that are used. Like for instance,
Okay.
you would use extra virgin olive oil, so that's obviously something that's very Italian. The use of gestures, it's also very Italian. Not sure it's specifically regional. There are some regional variations in rituals. In some places, they would use to sign. They would use like the how it is in English, the corn grains.
Okay.
They would use those. In others, they wouldn't. In some regions, they would use more the a gold ring, especially the wedding band.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, to sign certain things because there are certain segnature. Segnature use symbols pretty much. Signs drawn by hands, accompanied by words that you've been initiated into.
Okay.
And these signs can be different things, and one of these is also the circle. So when you have circle-based signature, they would use the wedding band for the symbolic meaning. But yeah, not sure it answers your question.
That's fine. So I'll go to the next one. The Malo Occhio. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Um,
Malocchio.
Occhio. Okay. Appears across Italian culture as both fear and protection. How central is the evil eye in Italian witchcraft? And what does it reveal about community, envy, and spiritual vulnerability?
So the evil eye, as I said, especially in the past, seemed more prevalent in the south than in the north. Although now things are becoming a bit more generally Italian, and
Okay.
what it tells us about envy. So yeah, in the concept of the evil eye, there's the idea that if somebody envies you for something, then it's casting the evil eye on you. So if I'm envying you for a promotion or your child or your spouse, your partner, whatever it is, then I'm sort of casting the evil eye, which means that I'm sort of jinxing it. I'm jinxing the thing that I'm envying, and then this can cause a series of misfortunes. It can cause headaches. It can cause illnesses. It can cause you to lose the thing that you have that has been envied. And this is diagnosed with a specific rituals of oil in water. By the way, I have an online course on my website, drangelapuca.com, for those who are interested in learning more about Italian witchcraft,
Oh,
because
great.
there's a whole course on that. I forgot to say in the beginning.
Okay.
But yeah, so basically, what it reveals that there's the perception that people's envy can affect you. So that there's a porousness, a permeability between individuals to the point where you are susceptible to these kind of things. And Sometimes people wear things like the horn that I don't have here, but it's also on the cover of my book.
It's very common out here, the horn. Yeah, all
Yeah,
my
the red
Italians have it.
horn.
All my friends have the horn. Yeah.
Yeah, it's traditionally it's a red horn in
Okay.
ceramic, and it's a fragile material
Hmm.
because when I know that sometimes it's also in gold and things like that, but that's less traditional,
Okay.
although that's still done. But the traditional one is red and made of this ceramic. It's a bit fragile, so when it breaks, it means that it has protected you from the evil eye, and you need to get a new one. And usually, it's gifted more than bought. But yeah, basically, that is one way people protect themselves from the evil eye, as well as salt and other ways. And also, the removal of the evil eye is something that one of these segnatori or segnatrici would do. So there's a specific ritual that diagnoses whether you have it and then removes it. Yeah, what it tells about the community, I suppose that the community can both damage and heal at the same time because they can envy you and cast the evil eye, but then you can have the local healer that that amends that.
Now, I learned in Spain they have something to a protection called the mano negro, like the black hand. Is that something that's in Italy as well as a say it's a form of protection from the evil eye as well, or is that basically just in the Iberian Peninsula? You think?
You can find something like the Manofica and similar
Okay.
things.
Okay.
So you can, I think they are less common, but they are still present.
Okay. Great. All right. So moving on to the next question. So I'm watching the time here. Much of Italian folk magic was transmitted quietly, often through women, family, or intimate community networks. How did secrecy, gender roles, and social pressure shape what survived and what was lost?
Um, yeah, it was definitely secretive.
Hmm.
Now it's not so secretive,
Yeah, now
especially for the
everything is
newer
out, right?
generation. I suppose there is still a degree of secrecy in terms of the initiation.
Okay, of course.
So it's not all out there, but there are more things out there. Um, so you said how gender secrecy
Yeah, how
ha
did secrecy, gender roles, and social pressure shape what survived and what was lost?
I think for a while it seemed like people thought that this was disappearing, that it was a disappearing superstition. And even at the time of Ernesto De Martino, who's the most famous ethnographer of the 20th century that has worked on these Italian witchcraft traditions, it also seemed like he was trying to capture something that was at the end of its existence, something that was disappearing as a superstition that was being let go in the age of reason, but it didn't. So I think that how the secrecy and gender roles have affected the gender roles, I don't know, because there are these practices can be passed down both to men and women depending on the family tradition, the family line, and sometimes also south and north. But you have both women and men. I don't think gender roles have particularly affected its transmission, or the secrecy has, but in the past they used to be transmitted, passed down within the family, so
Hmm.
it wouldn't affect its distribution necessarily because it would still happen within the families. I suppose that what happened more is that it's not so much the secrecy of gender roles, maybe the social pressures in terms of the perception that these practices were superstitions and that they were just silly superstitions that backwardly people would do.
Hmm.
So you would find that within families, the person who should have been initiated wouldn't want to be initiated because they thought, oh, this is just silly. I don't want that. What's that? So in that sense, maybe for a time and in some cases it could have been detrimental to its preservation as a practice, but then that has changed now because there are more people interested in esotericism. So obviously the ones that are more interested in esotericism will
Hmm.
take more of an interest into getting these passed down to them, as opposed to people that just think, oh, these are silly superstitions, I'm not that interested.
Yeah, I think sometimes stuff skips generations. Like in Puerto Rico, they have Santeria, so one generation would do it, or Masonry. Some generations were all about it, World War II, and then there was a while where there's a lot of generations that they weren't into it, and now I'm a millennial, so a lot of us are like, they call us Dan Brown Masons. We're into, the secrets and all this stuff. So I feel like sometimes stuff skips generations. It depends really on like what's happening. I feel like socially, that affects how and what. 'Cause right now, a lot of spiritual people are like, oh, Age of Aquarius, so they're seeking. I feel like. So moving
Yes.
along, as both a scholar and someone deeply engaged with these subjects, how do you navigate the tension between academic analysis and living, evolving traditions, especially when practitioners feel misunderstood or misrepresented?
Say it again.
Yeah. So, as both a scholar and someone deeply engaged with these subjects, how do you navigate the tension between academic and analysis and living, evolving traditions? So, especially when practitioners might feel like misunderstood or misrepresented, like how do you navigate through it? Does that ever happen, really?
Do you mean whether academia clashes with practices?
Correct. Yes.
No, not really, because so when I do field work, obviously I do that as an academic, and
Okay.
because I do anthropology, I do participant observation, and because I do participant observation, then I participate in rituals. I'm with them. I undertake initiations. I participate in rituals fully. So the only tension that is really there is, I suppose, obviously, for ethical reasons, you have to state that you are there as a researcher so that you will
Okay.
be collecting data for your fieldwork. So there have been cases where some practitioners have not really objected to that. Nobody has ever fully objected, but they would sort of point it out. So I was, for instance, in a shamanic retreat, and there was a medical doctor, maybe because of his profession, maybe he felt a bit more observed, and he said to the shaman teacher in this case, "Oh, I've heard that we are being observed today." And the teacher said, "No, nobody is observing. Everybody is participating." And so she would always call me at the center to do the rituals before everybody else. So in that way, she sort of showed that I was, I had to fully participate. So I wasn't just there observing them as, and taking notes as if they were, I don't know, ants, or little animals that I was watching their behavior. And then, in the end, with that guy, this medical doctor, I was aware of the fact that he seemed to be uncomfortable with my presence. So I made a point of sitting next to him at lunch and having a long conversation.
Oh.
And then he was fine with it. All the other days that we spent together, because it was a retreat, everybody was fine. So the only thing is that when there were specific experiences, especially during, certain night rituals with drums and so on, the day after, because they knew that I was a researcher, there were some participants that would come to me and say, "Oh, Angela, what do you think about what happened last night? Can you deny that it happened? Can you deny that it happened?" It seemed like they wanted my seal of approval.
Wow.
So maybe the only tension would be the fact that there are some practitioners that when they know that you're a researcher, they want your seal of approval, your validation seal,
Yeah.
saying,
Right.
"Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw what happened." And so if I say that, then it's like, "Oh, science has admitted that it is a thing." But obviously anthropology doesn't work like that. It's very different from natural science. So
Okay.
we are not there to prove, that what's happening is real. In anthropology, you describe what happens and describe the practices that are there, and really try to explain in some cases also the procedures and the ways that people make meaning and perceived effectiveness. The fact that they are effective or not is it's beyond the scope of anthropology. It's not something that really pertains to anthropology. It's more about what human beings believe and do and practice. So it's not really about it's not about proving that it is real, because that's not really what anthropology does. And I think it's well, I have my own views on that. I have a video on my channel for people that are interested. That's called "Why Science Cannot Prove Magic," because I think that natural science works through a reductionist theoretical framework that doesn't really match the way that magic works. So I think that there's always going to be a clash, not necessarily because magic is not real, but because the instruments of science are just made for something else. So
Yeah.
you can't weigh love on scale. It's just the tool is not the right one. So yeah, it's but that's really the only type of tension. Probably the fact that either practitioners sometimes were a bit uncomfortable with my presence, but for the most part they were fine. And even when they were uncomfortable, I would have conversations with them and establish dialogue and explain what I was there to do, and then they were fine. So I think it was more the prejudice of what they thought academic scholarship would be. And then the other tension is probably the validation, the fact that some informants wanted me to talk about them to feel validated, because if they were in an academic paper, then it meant they had made it. It's a thing. Now I'm the thing.
Wow.
So
It's
yeah.
it's great. Yeah, it's like full immersion, experiential research. It sounds like, but in an objective way. It's not to be reported subjectively, I'm guessing. So this brings us to our last question. Today we're seeing a renewed interest in ancestral traditions and folk magic. In your view, what is the future of Italian witchcraft, both in academia and in modern spiritual practice? And what responsibilities come with that revival?
So the future of Italian witchcraft is probably that it will become more accepted and widespread, also thanks to internet and social media. I'm hoping, obviously, I'm publishing in English, so I'm exposing, this whole tradition to an English-speaking audience, which can potentially be the whole world, or at least the English-speaking world. So that might mean, I wonder, I suppose, once my book, especially the one that I'm working on now, which is a bit more for a general public compared to my Brill book that cost a kidney and it's very academic. Yeah, I don't like the fact that academic books cost too much, if you couldn't tell by my remark. So I wonder how, when maybe the other book is gonna come out, and hopefully, if it does well, whether there will be some feedback into the Italian witchcraft community, how the English word learning about this tradition might feed back into the actual Italian witchcraft in Italy, and how it will change it, because it's very possible that, given that I include practical things, that people in America, maybe people with Italian heritage or without Italian heritage, they might start practicing those things. So it will be interesting to see how things evolve, and I hope I won't create a monster. But no, I hope that people. I think that if people use the material in my book, it will be a good thing, because well, first of all, I asked my informants. This is like the difference between what I see in America and what I see actually in Italy, which is, I think, very different. In America, there's this thing like, if you don't have a percentage of Italian DNA, then you don't have a claim on Italian witchcraft. And
Yeah,
then when I ask, yeah, and it's not like that in Europe. And I think it's an American fixation, this thing with DNA. We
yeah,
don't have that.
it's been just crazy the past couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and in Italy, when I asked my informants, and some of these are like village healers, so they are not like super connected or anything. And I said, do you think that a non-Italian could practice Italian witchcraft? And they looked at me a bit like it was a very odd question. It's like, and I said, do you find that this is an odd question? Because you're looking at me like a bit puzzled. And I said, well, if they can speak Italian, then why shouldn't be able to? Why shouldn't they be able to? So, and I asked that question to quite a few informants, and not a single one thought that you needed to be Italian to do it. They thought it was a very odd question. It's like, well, if you can, obviously it is a practice that's very Italian. Even the words are in Italian. So
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, if you can understand Italian, if you're here, they were, for them, it was more important to be there in person, like in Italy, as opposed to being Italian. So for them, it was more about being there, like, because there are some practices where, it's sort of important to be in a specific place. So for them, it was more about being there and being able to speak Italian than it was about being Italian, as in born. Obviously, for an Italian, when you say to an Italian, somebody being Italian, what they will understand is that somebody has been born and raised in Italy. That's what they understand as Italian.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Totally
so
different
it's
out
very
here.
different from the perception in
Yeah.
America. I
Really
think in
different out
America
here.
there's this fixation with DNA, which is strange
Yeah,
for
and
me.
it's surprising too, because some people the whole life they go, they're Italian, and then they check DNA, and now they're like, whoa, I'm this and that, and then so it could work. It's like a catch-22, really, when they do it. If the DNA isn't like, or they get surprised on, oh, wow, I didn't know I was mostly German or whatever. So it's very interesting. But yeah, DNA is a big thing, and in name, oh, I'm Italian, or I'm this, and they use that to justify actions and behaviors.
Yeah, but the thing that is important is that culture is not DNA. This fixation with DNA is very dangerous and very
Okay.
problematic.
Okay.
Culture, according to all ethnographers
Hmm.
and anthropologists, culture is something that you live and breathe. It's, it's something that you live. So you can, the culture is the country, is the culture, your culture is the culture you were born in. And then you can be acculturated into another culture if you move to another country. But
Okay.
culture is never DNA, it's always something that you live and breathe. Obviously, you can have some exposure to a culture if your parents are from another culture. So that
Hmm.
is a form of cultural belonging.
Okay.
But your culture is where you're born and raised, and maybe where you move if you can get acculturated into another culture if you move to the place.
I like that. That's very helpful. Thank you for that. Because a lot of people think it's just DNA really, and they really hang on to that,
Yeah, in North America,
and they don't
not in
speak
Europe.
the language. Like most Americans only speak English, and it's American English. We're all based on the state really. So yeah, great. We're coming back to the time here. I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm really grateful that you came on the podcast. And if you have any closing remarks, any plugs, anything you want to recommend, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
thank you for inviting me. And I would recommend people, if you're interested in academic scholarship on esotericism, and not just Italian witchcraft, but pretty much everything,
Hmm.
please check out my social media. My main platform is YouTube under Angela Symposium, but I'm present on all social media platforms as either Angela Puca, Dr. Angela Puca, or Angela Symposium. And I have a website, drangelapuca.com, where you can check my online courses, my services, and also if you want to support my work, which is very important because that's how it stays alive. I would highly encourage people to sign up to my Patreon. You also enter my community, my Discord server. You get Zoom chats with me and the community, and monthly lectures. So there's a lot of fun going on my Patreon, and there are other ways to support me via PayPal, Coffee, YouTube memberships, and you find all the links in my link tree that you will probably put in the show note.
Yep. Yeah. So everything will be in the show notes for you, for everyone to check out. Because I love the content, love all the academic research you're doing. It's very helpful to the occult and esoteric community. I know we all learn a lot and love watching, your podcasts. So once again, thank you for coming on the episode. I would love to
Thank
bring
you
you
for
on back,
inviting me.
in the future for another riveting conversation. But I learned a lot today because I haven't studied Italian witchcraft. It's been more esoteric, occult, Western. So really appreciate it. I know all the subscribers will love it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you to all who are watching us.
Yep. All right.